Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
And that was my sister with the National Anthem. I'm Timothy Zahn, for those of you who don't know, and I'm running for state representative in the 20th district here. I've lived here all my life, and I grew up helping my mother around the farm, and later on I helped local farmers in their fields during the summer. And, you know, this has given me an appreciation for hard work and the challenges that face a rural lifestyle. Over the past 10 years or so, I've become increasingly interested in politics, but this interest has turned to disgust and disillusionment as partisan bickering stalls progress on fundamental issues. So I decided to run to bring real, lasting progress to our district and state. And tonight I'd like to get some of your questions so that you can know where I stand on some of the most important issues. So the first question we've got here is, how do you plan to improve the local economy? Well, I think there's a number of things that we can do to help stimulate growth in the area, and I think foremost among those is we need to leave our past behind us. We need to look forward, and to do that we need to look at outdoor recreation, which is the biggest opportunity for a rural area such as ours. And to do this, I think we should look at repurposing some of the timberland that already exists in our district into parks. And we can do this by auctioning off the rights to the clearing and thinning of these forests, because they will need to be thinned and cleared to make parks a pleasant place to be. So we can auction off these rights, which will help reduce the cost and provide business opportunities for local contractors. And these parks will draw more businesses, they'll draw new customers, and you can really see where towns that have adopted this sort of approach to the economy, an approach based on outdoor recreation and tourism, where they've really prospered. If you look at the towns like Leavenworth, Leavenworth 50 years ago was a foundering town that had declining economy because the industries that it relied on were leaving the area, and they turned to tourism and they turned to recreation, and now their average income is significantly above the average income for the nation, and we are in this district below. Another way we can improve the local economy is to improve access to higher education, because this is another thing that attracts businesses and attracts new generations to the area. And you know, we've got a problem here with keeping our younger generations in the area because they leave to find better opportunities for education and jobs elsewhere. And if we have the access to higher education here, they'll stay in the area and provide great benefits to the economy. And you can see places, college towns, are also doing well. There's Ashford, Ellensburg. These towns have all grown up around their colleges, and you can just see the differences night and day. And if we could turn Centralia into a four-year college, perhaps build an agricultural wing onto it and use that to benefit our local farmers and help make sure that the next generation of farmers has a solid base to stand on. So the next question is, some people in my family can't afford insurance. What will you do about healthcare? Well, in order to make healthcare affordable and accessible to everyone, we need a single-payer system in Washington State. And it's not nearly as difficult or unreachable as a lot of politicians would tell you. And I think that there's already an existing proposal that it's a really good bill, and I encourage anyone who's interested to go read it. It's Whole Washington, and they have laid everything out, how they would pay for it, how we would be covered, and it's just an excellent bill that clearly explains how we can move to a single-payer system without causing disruption or loss of care or increasing costs. The next question is, every town around here has a problem with homelessness. How will you solve that? Well, one of the things that we can do that is probably the most effective way we can help combat chronic homelessness is to introduce supportive housing into affected areas. Utah had a similar problem with homelessness, and through their Housing First program, which introduced supportive housing, which is a system whereby there's housing in a low-income area that provides the medical support and the educational support that the homeless need to get back on their feet. And Utah implemented this and reduced their chronic homeless population by between 72 and 90% in areas. And I think that we could achieve similar results here, and I think that's something that we need to look at. And statewide, we also have the problem of too many organizations trying to do the same thing, but without coordinating. We've got a lot of money going into the homeless problem in our state, but it's all directed by different organizations and different groups. And I think we need to have a board in our state to make sure that these groups are spending their money in the areas and ways where it can have the greatest effect. I have terrible, unreliable internet, and it makes working and schooling from home difficult. What will you do about that? Well, in our state, we have very poor access to the internet in many of our rural areas. And it's been this way for a long time, and as long as we allow the large internet companies to have their way of things, they aren't going to expand access where it isn't profitable. So we have to, at some level, either make sure that they are offering fair internet access to everyone, either through regulation or ensuring that they have funds to expand, or we can turn internet into a public utility. This has been extremely effective in the past for things like the electrification of the United States. And in this day and age, the internet is almost as important to us as electricity. Many of us couldn't run our businesses or go about our daily lives without the internet. So I believe that the best solution is to make it a public utility. But failing that, we can work with the internet companies either through regulation or support. The next question is, how will you prevent urban sprawl taking over our farmland? Well, this is a significant problem in the 20th district. We've got urban sprawl coming from both the north and the south into the rural areas of the district, and we have lost, I believe in Lewis County, we've lost since the 70s, we've lost about 75,000 acres of farmland. I know Thurston County has lost 7,500 acres just between 2000 and 2016. And since the 30s, the Puget Sound area in general has lost 60 to 75% of its farmland. So it's a very definite problem, but there are some really effective solutions. We can have purchase the development rights, where the farmer gets the development rights from the developer, and that's one thing we can subsidize farmers for. But we can also have the developers purchasing the development rights for the farmland and then not developing in exchange for being able to develop higher density properties in urban areas. And I think that we do need some regulation on the density of housing in rural areas, because when they build a housing development that's extremely dense, it has negative impacts even beyond the land that it's built on. It has negative impacts to farms and natural areas close by, and this not all negatively impacts the economy, because you have reduced productivity of farmland, you have reduced tourism from people not wanting to come to the area, and I think the best solution is to offer increased urban development in return for not developing farmland. The last question I've got on my pad here is, what will you do about the budget shortfall in the state of Washington? Well, there's a really simple solution: tax the rich. The billionaires and millionaires have profited during COVID-19 while everyone else has suffered. And if we put a 1% asset fee on those with over $10 million in wealth, we can pay the deficit, and we will have enough money to help businesses and affected individuals recover from the crisis. And it's perfectly constitutional. We can implement it quickly, and it will only affect those who have benefited from the coronavirus. Like Jeff Bezos, he has made more than $90 billion during this pandemic. And he could, if he chose to, pay off the national debt, or not the national debt, that would be an achievement, but he could pay off the state's deficit and still come out well on top. But what's he doing? He is building a clock in a mountain. So if he's not going to do it by himself, I think it's about time that the state government got up and told him to do it, because he has to. And it's the right thing to do, and it will keep us from cutting programs for social programs. It'll keep us from cutting education programs. It'll keep us from cutting the programs for people who most need it. And I don't think our first solution should never be to cut the budget. It should always be to find a new source of revenue before we cut programs that people rely on. And in this case, a 1% asset fee on people with more than $10 million in wealth will generate enough money to cover the deficit and cover our recovery. Now, the reasons I'm running it's very simple. I'm running because I want to give everyone in the 20th district a better life and ensure a brighter future for all Washingtonians. And that is plain and simple the reason I'm running. So if you want to learn more, go to electzahn.com and please don't forget to vote. Thank you.